Thank you, Mr. President. House Bill 135 addresses state benefits paid for by the state of Idaho for persons who are not legally in the United States. House Bill 135 would eliminate state benefits that are not of an emergency nature while keeping state benefits which are of emergency nature. An example of that would be a woman who's pregnant and has her baby at an unexpected time. She could apply for benefits through Medicaid to pay for the birth of that child. Although what would not be allowed would be the care up to the time of the birth, and the postnatal care would be eliminated by House Bill 135. The food stamp program is a federally funded program. It has its own criteria. It's outside of the scope of House Bill 135. But the WIC program would be within the scope of House Bill 135. WIC stands for Women, Infants, and Children. A child born in the United States with evidence of a birth certificate would be available for WIC benefits as that child would be a U.S. citizen. The mother, if the mother was not a U.S. citizen or was not here lawfully, would not be eligible for WIC benefits. With regard to vaccines administered by regional health districts, those would be affected by this bill. You'd have to show that you are legally present in the United States to receive vaccines from the regional health districts. As much of these benefits are not tracked, Department of Health and Welfare didn't have an estimate as to what the financial impact of this bill would be, but they didn't have any data that showed that there were benefits being given to this population of people. So the benefits or the financial effect of this bill would probably be minimal. And other than WIC and the vaccines at regional health districts, Health and Welfare is not aware of any payments that are being currently expended by the state of Idaho to deal with the issues affected by this bill. I want to read from the bill for a second. It's from Title 67, Section 7903, and the part of the bill that's, or the part of that statute that's being affected by this bill is paragraph 3. Verification of lawful presence in the United States shall not be required. So we're not going to require evidence of lawful presence in the United States for emergency type services, but for those services that are not emergencies, lawful presence in the United States would be required. One thing this bill doesn't do is it doesn't prevent anybody from accessing any of these services. What it does do is it would prevent the state of Idaho from paying for those. So you could still access these types of services through a nonprofit. You could pay for them yourself, or you could get somebody else to pay for them. And so the impact of the bill from a financial standpoint is actually fairly minimal. And with that, Mr. President, debate is open.
Debate being open, is there further debate?
Mr. President.
Senator Guthrie.
Thank you, Mr. President. Debate against the bill.
Senator Guthrie, you have the floor.
Senators, this changes the law to require proof of lawful presence for essential services like immunizations, testing for communicable diseases, prenatal and postnatal care, and food assistance for dependent children under 18. I'd like to just touch on a few of these points. By denying immunizations, it potentially affects the overall public health of Idaho's entire population. If you have a measles outbreak or any health outbreak of any disease you can imagine, you can think about how problematic that might be. You know, in Idaho, we, and many in this building, we take a great deal of pride in being a pro-life state, and I share in that objective. But in this case, the legislation denying prenatal care could compromise lives of the preborn. And so I guess unless we're becoming selective in our application of when pro-life is important, you know, maybe that's a point to consider. In addition, the need for medical care that is not allowed can result in increasingly expensive emergency room care. We've all seen that. We've heard it from healthcare providers. Something that's not done up front can cost many times more when they go to the emergency room, where that treatment is still required under EMTALA. may not be the best approach from a financial perspective. And then the denial of food assistance for children under 18 when parents may not have lawful presence in the country is contrary to a Supreme Court decision handed down by the United States in United States versus Wong Kim Ark, where they opined that the United States Supreme Court has consistently held that children born on United States soil are United States citizens, even if their parents are citizens of another country. And Section 1 of the 14th Amendment of the UN's Constitution provides in part, all persons or naturalized in the United States are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law that shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. And this bill would do just that. You'll note on your desk letters in opposition from the food producers, the Idaho Dairymen's. I can also share with you that IACI is opposed to this, as is the Catholic Diocese. With that, I hope you'll consider voting no on this bill. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President.
Senator Wintrow.
Thank you, Mr. President. To debate against the bill.
Senator, you have the floor.
I'm going to keep this brief because I think Senator from 28 covered a lot of points, but you're getting a handout now. And the reason I'm giving it to you is because I went back and looked at the official record of when the law was enacted initially in 2007. And the initial record of 2007, when the law that we're examining was enacted, there was great discussion about who should receive benefits in our state based on their lawful or unlawful presence. And what I found was so fascinating by the record was over and over there was discussion about never targeting children. And I only gave you one page, but it's a thick stack of minutes. They did a really good job on the record back then, as our secretaries do now. But I just gave you one page where the record indicates deep questioning about children and prenatal care and postnatal care. And over, the bill sponsor was clear about would never intend to harm children. It doesn't include children, doesn't include prenatal care. And so I guess the reason I wanted to share that is because the point has been made that there are a lot of people that have had this debate, and they were very careful about ensuring that kids weren't being affected, especially U.S. citizens. We're talking about children born here in the United States. And I think the unfortunate part about this bill is it crosses out, it basically disregards any federal law. So we're throwing the Supremacy Clause out, and we're just basically nullifying what the federal government has already said about WIC, SNAP, and then the free school lunch program. That's just harmful to kids. And so what this bill does is it surgically removes the kids and prenatal care. The other letter I do have is the Mormon Women for Ethical Government also wrote a letter of opposition I wanted to share with you. And with that, I would just ask us, please, to keep that in mind as we go forward and make sure we're not harming children or children who haven't yet been born. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President.
Senator Lakey.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senators, you know, I took the time to call the Department of Health and Welfare on this bill, and they clarified that these provisions are used very, very minimally in the state of Idaho. There are very few that utilize these programs, I think largely because of the federal programs that are available. I also clarified that anyone that is present here legally, regardless of age, would be eligible for these benefits. So the child that's born here would be eligible. Senators, accountability, personal responsibility, compliance with the law are all values that we hold in high regard. This legislation upholds those principles. We have limited resources and funds, and careful use of those limited public funds and resources is one of our primary responsibilities as legislators. This legislation does not deny services. This is simply about who's paying for it. These individuals can pay for these services. This is about whether government pays for it. Those that enter and remain in this country and this state bear the responsibility of their choice to disregard the law. We hold people accountable for violation of the law. We should not incentivize that violation. Prohibiting illegal entry into our country and state and then saying, if you manage to avoid law enforcement and get here, we will provide government benefits to enable you to stay here is not consistent with our Idaho values. Senators, we also have to manage and balance compassion and compliance with the law. And this legislation does that. It maintains service availability for emergency circumstances, medical treatment in emergency cases. We should not deny that. It also maintains short-term care and housing at things like shelters. But to provide for medium and long-term assistance and services at government expense for those that are here illegally enables and incentivizes violation of the law and is not consistent with our values of personal responsibility, accountability, and the rule of law. Thank you.
Senator Nichols,
Mr. President, to debate the bill.
you have the floor.
Thank you. It's interesting. I've had the opportunity to live in another country, and I went through the process to go there legally. Was actually getting dual citizenship at the time, and I remember going into several appointments with the attorney that we had, and they went over all the things that we could and could not do, even though we were going through the process legally. And I remember specifically they told us that we were not allowed to ever use their welfare in the country, that we were not allowed to own certain types of land, that we could never have their health insurance programs, that everything was under our dollar to purchase. And they said that they were very careful on these issues because their first priority was their citizens, the people that were born and raised there and lived there. And I'd never forgotten that. We have a problem that's been going on in our country over the last little while, and it is costing a lot of money to the taxpayers of our state and of this country. I think that this bill is a carefully crafted bill. I think it does a few different things. I think it upholds legal integrity. I think it encourages legal immigration, and I think it helps us to align with the federal policies that are coming into play. We want to be able to help people, but we want them to do it the legal way. And I go back to a interview that I did with several sheriffs in the area, with their concerns and what they saw going on after I got back from my trip to the border, and they said that we have to disincentivize people from coming here. That's one of the only ways to be able to get control over the issues that we have. And we see what's happening at the federal level now, and they're really taking some strong stances on illegal immigration here in the United States. So I think this is a great way to be able to help support that, to also, like I said, encourage doing things the right way, and so I'll support this bill.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President.
Senator Shippey,
Mr. President, to debate in favor of the bill.
you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate some of the comments that have been made. These were some of the concerns that I've heard from other times that we're denying, this bill would deny care to maybe mothers who are pregnant. It doesn't deny any care, as was pointed out. This just shifts who would be paying for that. And I have had a couple of individuals reach out to me concerned about the issue of immunizations and these illegal immigrants not being able to receive these. And the issue is not, it was given as an issue of a public threat or a public health crisis that could potentially happen because of this. But I pointed out then, and I'll point out now, that these can be purchased with your own money, or maybe an employer could purchase vaccines for their employees if they were concerned maybe about their workspace. So these things still could happen. I have gotten vaccines myself in the past, and I've paid for them myself. And so a lot of them are not terribly expensive. And so this doesn't deny certain forms of care. This would just simply shift who pays for that. So I very much appreciate the legislation and urge your aye vote.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President,
Senator Grow.
just a couple of comments. You know, with the illegal immigration we've had, we recognize it's a challenge. We've got a ton of people here that do not have U.S. citizenship. We want to be compassionate. I think the bill is compassionate for those emergency situations. But I think we need to harken back to what rights are given with citizenship. And there are certain rights that we as American citizens have. And those that come here that are not citizens are not entitled to those same rights. So I feel that this kind of threads the needle on being compassionate, but yet at the same time recognizes that citizenship is critical to receive the benefits that the taxpayers who are citizens are paying for. Thank you.
Is there further debate?
Just come to my mind. I asked myself two questions. One was, Ron, have we as a society
about a lot here today in debate of this bill, and looking at this from the viewpoint of a mom and, you know, a family history of people who came here before there was even a Department of Health and Welfare. And my grandmother raised 8 children between the ages of 6 and 18 after her husband passed away, not speaking a word of English, not reading or writing, but she did it. So I have to ask myself this. If I'm a mother and I have children, or I'm pregnant and getting ready to have a child, why would I put my children into a position where they were in a country where I had no way to take care of them? Why would I have them in a position where I was a fugitive from the law, or I was already breaking the law by being where I am? I think the compassion begins long before these children are in a position where they need these services. The compassion begins with making sure that we're good with the law, that we're legal in what we're doing, not fleeing or taking them into another country where they're positioned to be so that they're breaking the law with their first breath, or their parents are breaking the law with their first breath. I think the question of compassion starts long before the needs addressed in this bill are even possible for them. So I'm going to support this because we need to be responsible as parents, what we do with our children and how we get their lives started. Thank you, Mr. President.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President,
Senator Wintrow.
to debate for the second time.
Is there any senator who wishes to debate for the first time? Senator Blaylock, you are recognized to debate for the first time.
Thank you, Mr. President. To maybe answer some of the questions that were just put out there, that mother made those choices to come here illegally because the situation she was in was probably bad, and because this is America and it's the best. And who wouldn't want to take that risk to come here and partake of the American dream? So I get it. But does that entitle people that come here illegally to our benefits that we give our citizens? I don't think so. I did confirm with the Department of Health and Welfare that not one person that is pregnant is on Medicaid right today. So right now, if anybody is getting anything paid for with those funds, it's only because of emergency situations. And I also confirmed that the striking out the dependent language will not affect the school lunch program, and they still would be able, if that child was born here and is a citizen, they would be able to have that food assistance if needed. We can have compassion when we make decisions like this, and I think we have a hard time even paying for these benefits for our own citizens today. We are all acutely aware of the health care costs that we're paying in the state. One of these good senators here that I respect the most had me do a little exercise and take our Medicare budget and divide it by the days of the year. $14 million a day is what we spend in Medicare costs in the state of Idaho. $14 million a day. I mean, that is a sobering thought. So with all the compassion that I have to continue these benefits forward for Idaho citizens, I will be voting yes on this.
Is there further debate?
Mr. President,
Senator Wintrow.
to debate for a second time.
Is there any other senator who wishes to debate for the first time? Senator Wintrow, you're recognized to debate for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wasn't going to do that, but I just want to say a few things. Number one, we've heard a lot about taxpayers, and there are about 35,000 unauthorized workers in the state of Idaho today. According to the McClure Center that did this study a couple years ago, they're paying taxes. And I think it is estimated in that report that $570 million in 2019 was projected that was just from unauthorized taxes or unauthorized workers and their buying power. And we could, when this law was initially enacted, they were having the same discussions we're having today about immigration. And they were very concerned about harming children. And they made sure that we didn't cut them out. And today we're just taking a line of a pen and scratching them out. And I think that's poor judgment on our part. And especially the communicable diseases. How do you think disease spreads? Do you want people here who are not getting vaccinated for maybe measles and those kind of things just spread in the community? Those are benefits to us. And if we do have a great country, we have plenty. We're one of the richest in the world, and we can't afford to make sure that children are getting the benefits they need because the parents still have to prove their immigration status now. And what parent in this climate is going to do that to try to get food for their child, even if they were born on this soil? And by the way, not everybody chooses to be here. Some people are dragged. Some people are trafficked. Some people don't want to get pregnant. Some people are raped. Not everybody has a choice. So I would ask us to be careful in that because it doesn't come across like we really are being compassionate in that. And we shouldn't be taking away benefits for children at all, ever, not even the perception of doing it, especially in a state that brags about making sure we take care of babies and pregnant women. You don't have, regardless of the piece of paper you carry, why would you not want to give somebody some benefit, especially if they're struggling? I can't understand that. I can't understand that.
Is there further debate? Hearing none, Senator Hart, you're recognized to close debate.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't think there's anyone in this chamber who's not compassionate or not generous. We wouldn't be here if we weren't generous with our time. This is every one of us is sacrificing to be a member of this Senate. And I think there's a line, though, that can be crossed, though. We can be generous with our time. We can be generous with our resources, with our money. But when we're talking about the money that belongs to the state of Idaho, we're not generous with that money when we're giving it to a group of people or to a cause that the state of Idaho's people don't endorse. And I know that the vast majority of the people of the state of Idaho want us to deal with this illegal immigration problem. And it is a problem, but it's a federal problem. It's a problem that needs to be solved in Washington, D.C. And we don't really have that many tools at the state level to deal with this problem. But we do have House Bill 135. And House Bill 135 can say that we recognize that there's a problem here in the state of Idaho that we need to address. And to the degree that we can address it, I believe we should address it. So in the last few days, I met again with the Department of Health and Welfare, and I want to speak to page 2 of the bill, lines 10 and 11, where the language is crossed out or were exempted by federal law. According to the Department of Health and Welfare, this is redundant language. It doesn't need to be in the bill, doesn't affect any program by being taken out of the bill. It's redundant language, so it's being removed. The food stamp program, which I believe they call SNAP now, that's a federal program. That's not affected by House Bill 135. The WIC program is. That's a Medicare program run by the state. I have to disagree with the gentleman who's sitting 3 seats over from me. I don't know what district that is, but I met with Health and Welfare specifically about the question about a child born in the United States who's considered a United States citizen. That United States citizen is not affected by any aspect of House Bill 135. Any benefits that that child is eligible for to be reimbursed or paid for by the state of Idaho would continue to receive those benefits. So that child who's a United States citizen is not affected by House Bill 135. This bill does not deny services to anybody. What this bill affects is who will pay for those services. Members of this chamber can reach out to nonprofits or this population group that's affected by this bill and help to fund these services. Anyone in this child who's born in the United States, reach out to Health and Welfare for those benefits. And I heard the same thing from Health and Welfare. They don't have any record right now that any of this population group has done that. So the financial impact is actually minimal, this bill. But we do have a problem here in the state of Idaho. We have a problem in all the 50 states, the illegal immigration problem. This bill addresses that to the degree we can at the state level, and I would encourage your aye vote. Thank you, Mr. President.
Debate is closed. The question before the Senate is, shall House Bill 135 pass the Senate? The Secretary will call the roll.
Adams. Anthon. Berndt. Bjerke. Blaylock. Burtonshaw. Carlson. Coho. Cook. Den Hartog. Foreman. Galloway. Grow. Guthrie. Harris. Hart. Kaiser. Cole. Lakey. Lent. Nichols. Ricks. Samaroff. Shippey. Taylor. Taves. Van Orden. Ward Engelking. Wintrow. Waller. Woodward. Cito. Seiderveld. Anthon.
Aye.
Berndt. Burtonshaw. Lent. There is also a paired vote. Senator Okonowitz votes aye. Senator Ruckte votes nay.
Roll call shows 26 aye, 9 nay, 0 absent or excused, a majority having voted in the affirmative. House Bill number 135 passes the Senate. Is there a correction to title? Hearing none, the title is approved and House Bill number 135 will be returned to the House of Representatives.